my name's Catherine Hunsaker, and this is my presentation portion and oral presentation of the project for MRTS 1225. Now, I am going to proceed this. I have done multiple takes. I do have puppies as far away in the house as I can get them, but they are not allowing me to take a take without them getting a say-so within them. So, we're just going to start, and I forgive for the background noise. So, my project is over Livor Mortis. And what that is, there we go. So, what is Livor Mortis? It quite honestly translates to the bluish color of death. And Livor Mortis is a physical change that can occur within the first 15 minutes after the time of death. I do like how it is summed up in our textbook, because they do kind of sum it up in a neat little bow. And they say, Livor Mortis is a physical change observed as the pooling of the blood to dependent parts of the body as a consequence of time and gravity. And that is pretty much it. Now, we are going to go into a little bit more depth here. So, to go into more depth, we do have to kind of have a basis understanding of the human circulatory system. And I'm not going to delve too deep into it, but I do want to cover the four major components that are involved in Livor Mortis. So that would be the heart, both the arteries and the veins, as well as the blood. So, the human circulatory system, speaking of the heart, and as we see here, I have a nice little picture that depicts it pumping, and it is responsible for the pushing of blood throughout the body. That is the force, that is the muscle that drives the blood and distributes it throughout the body. But what gets it to throughout the body are the arteries and veins, and that's what encapsulates the blood and transports it throughout the system, and that's what's called a closed circulatory system. And believe it or not all things on Earth have a closed circulatory system. And then what is contained in those vessels is, layman's terms, blood. Now, blood can contain and carry multiple things. But what I am most concerned about with this process is red blood cells, or RBCs. So, going on. So, when Livor Mortis begins, like I said earlier, it can begin as soon as 15 minutes after the time of death. Now, that can kind of depending on environmental circumstances, such as if someone happened to pass outside and it was quite cold, or even below freezing, it can definitely delay that Livor Mortis from happening, as the blood will become quite frozen without that internal body heat and become sluggish and freeze as well. So, when the heart stops pumping, when that happens, blood is no longer under that pressure that that muscle is putting to it. And when that happens, it falls under the influence of another force. And that force would be gravity, or Earth's gravitational pull, if we want to get eloquent with it. So, after it starts falling under the spell of gravity, blood begins pooling both externally and internally. We have to remember, I know we mostly focus on the external because that, as embalmers, is what we are trying to fix, but it does happen internally as well. Blood just begins pooling to the dependent portions of the body, and what that means is the portions of the body that are closest to the ground, or are feeling the gravity's pull the most. So, the red blood cells that are contained within the blood causes that reddish hue that we see on the gentleman here, and like I said, that is seen on the dependent portions of the remains. What's next after that? The red blood cells, or the blood that is happening to go in, the red blood cells that are happening to pool inside and externally, what's happening is that they're actually becoming, or they are in the process of becoming fixed. And what that means is that they get so far within the skin's capillaries, which is what we're focusing on externally, is the skin tissue actually expands so that the skin capillaries that are within that skin or dermis layer can no longer escape. So I also really, really like this because I am going to go into deoxyhemoglobin. I'm going to show this right here, this little figure right here. So B and C really show livor mortis. Now, after 4 to 6 hours and the blood has become fixed, it will happen to go through a process and become deoxyhemoglobin. Now, unlike livor mortis, that is not a physical change, that is a chemical change, because what is happening to the blood as it becomes deoxyhemoglobin is that the oxygen is actually unbinding from the red blood cell, because red blood cells carry oxygen throughout the body. So, and then you see D here, and so what happens when that oxygen leaves that red blood cell, you really start to see it become a deep, deep, deep purple, that stain. So, now, as embalmers, we, and funeral directors, who also are embalmers, our main focus is how do we fix this? And the way we fix this can be several different ways. If the remains happen to have been supine while the livor mortis was underway, you could most likely just camouflage that with regular clothing or casket lining, as that will be on the dorsal side of the body, so that will be hidden from view. However, like our gentleman earlier that I showed, we can assume that that livor mortis stain continued on up to his face because it was rather all over his chest as well. You would have to either use cosmetics. Depending on the sex, you could go a little heavier on the cosmetics, nothing crazy, but with women you do have a little more leeway. Or cauterants, which would really be your big help there with any livor mortis staining. Cauterants are kind of an acid. They are an acid, they're not kind of. They're an acid that eat away that dermis layer that I talked about earlier, and that contains those skin capillaries that have the trapped blood in it. And it strips those dermis layers away, therefore stripping away the skin capillaries, therefore skipping away the blood, therefore having a bleaching effect. So, that is going to be our really, really big component when it comes to fixing livor mortis. And that's really all I wanted to cover with this. This was kind of just a highlight over livor mortis. I hope it kind of gave a good overview over this physical change that the body goes through. Now, it certainly isn't the only process that the body is going under after the time of death, but it is one of the physical changes that the body does go under. Now, I do have my works cited, of course, one of them being the Turning Art into Science, and Science Direct also had really good points too. So, I hope this was a good overview, and I hope everyone has a wonderful